Right. Senegal, Netherlands. That was definitely a game that happened. I told you all beforehand it would be quite dull. And I was vindicated. Obviously, 2 late goals for the Netherlands, the excellent Cody Gakpo, and then Davy Klaassen finishing it off. Mike, enjoy that game? Or is this just one of those ones that happens in the World Cup that you forget a few weeks later?
Today's a bad day for me for football.
Mike's still upset about USA. I love Mike debates, but Mike's face says it all. All the fans making comments, please just encourage Mike. Give Mike some encouragement because his face says it all.
So this Senegal game hurt me just as much as the US game. I'm a big fan of African teams. Will always push for the African countries at the major tournaments. This was a game where I thought Senegal did well to absorb a ton of pressure early on, and they did well to counter. Senegal, a very dangerous counter-attack team. They're a team that also doesn't give up many goals. We've seen that at AFCON. We've seen that during World Cup qualifying. They severely missed that quality, that extra special something that Sadio Mane would have added. I think if they would have had Mane, they get a goal, and this game is a completely different storyline. 2-0, very flattering for the Netherlands. I don't think this is a 2-0 game. I think this was actually a draw had Senegal been able to get their feet and their wits about them in the final third. Bouladdia, he did enough at times to create half chances, but they just didn't have that attacking force that we've seen them up to this point. And I wonder if that's what's going to cost them in this group. Between the 2 boxes, I thought they were pretty dang good for a team missing their star player. But in the end, bad goalkeeping as well. Cannot forget about Mendy. Poor goalkeeping on 2 instances. That's what cost them in the end. And you can't have bad goalkeeping at the World Cup.
Mike, just a quick one for me before I get in. From what you saw of Senegal, do you feel that out of all the African nations we've seen, that Senegal could be the one African nation that's very close to maybe winning a World Cup in the next 2 or 3 World Cups in what you're seeing?
I think it depends.
It's difficult to say because obviously there deserves to be a lot more African nations to qualify. That's a different subject. But from what you see at Senegal so far, I personally don't think they're that far off.
Yeah, I think we'd be able to get more certainty on that if Sadio Mane would have played in this World Cup. I think his loss in terms of physical presence not being there because of injury is going to be a bit of a detractor from them. I think they're 11. They have the quality to go up against most teams around the world, especially in Europe. I think the way they play set up well against European teams. It'd be an interesting match if they make it out of the group when they face England. Let's be honest, England will most likely win the group. That match would be significant if Senegal were able to absorb pressure and get it right in the final third with the likes of Mane. But I look beyond the 11. I'd like to see them get more young talent from France or maybe even through their country, getting from teams like Monaco, from teams throughout Ligue 1 to be a source of just supplemented talent through the team. If they can get, a good 14, 15 players coming in their roster for the national team, then I'd give them a chance to be a real factor in a bigger way.
I just wanted to say you've hit on 2 great points there. And actually one reason I agree with you, especially on first of all, of course, there need to be so many more African teams in the World Cup. How much is this tournament missing Nigeria and the talent that team has? I mean, Egypt as well. Wouldn't it be great to see Mo Salah? But one thing with Senegal, slightly tedious point from a political nerd like me. One of the reasons I think they are a team that even in a post-Sadio Mane era could compete for a World Cup, it's the thing we never talk about. It's quite a stable country. It is settled, peaceful transitions of power. These sorts of things you think, keep politics out of football. Why are we talking about this? But actually, this is what matters. This is why Costa Rica qualifies for the World Cup every time. It's stable. Regularly, it's stable. It's, comfortable.
The bags of pee they throw at their stadium as well.
James,
that helps.
Well, just to add to that, James, it's a comment that I've made before on the pod where I made it last time where I said that when you look at some of these African nations now, what we've seen throughout the history of the World Cup, we've seen players shooting at 60, 70 yards, doing crazy things because some of these players are coming from these countries trying to get moves to Europe. But when you look at Senegal and some of the nations now, most of these players are playing in top clubs in Europe, big clubs in Europe. So they're not playing to come out of Africa to get into Europe. And the World Cup is their opportunity to really achieve great financial success. So that's the difference. And what you said is 100% right. It's about countries being stable. And again, you talk about the whole bigger picture. This is what I want FIFA to spend more time on. The money that FIFA's giving to these nations to develop their football make sure it's actually going to good use to develop their football, and that some guys not sitting at the top of the tree and just siphoning the money and keeping it for their own greed, and they're having all these issues. Someone made a comment about Nigeria. Nigeria is a nation that's always been tremendously talented when it comes to football, but there's too much politics involved, from government down all the way to Nigerian national team, which is why Nigeria do not succeed. And for me, I think Senegal, what I've seen, is one of the most, like you said, structured countries. The talent is there. Today, I feel that Mendy was at fault for both goals, because if you look at the first goal, it looks like he made a shout to come out and he didn't get there before the attacking player did. Second one, he's parried away. It wasn't a bad performance. I think that there's questions of the Dutch just by Senegal's performance earlier on, because when they pressed high, the Dutch didn't look too comfortable playing out the back. And against other better opposition, people might say, if they can win the ball back quicker and be clinical, there's still questions about that Dutch team playing out the back. But it wasn't the greatest of games, but I did feel that the Netherlands' quality will shine through in the end, and then that they would get the result.
Wrapping things up on Group A, Mike, a little question for you, because I was quite intrigued by that opening game and whether Ecuador were just good enough or a little bit underwhelming. And I still don't quite know what I think. So where's your head at on Ecuador against the Netherlands, and whether, you know, this could be a proper battle for top spot? Where does Senegal fit in? How do you see the rest of this group shaking out?
I think the same thing that I thought before this match against the Netherlands. It's going to be down to the midfield. In this game, Frankie de Jong and Cody Gakpo were the difference for the Netherlands. The ball Frankie de Jong plays in, it's friggin', you could see it coming down from the Alps. The snow was capped on the ball hanging up in the air. But some of the entry passes from Frankie de Jong, I thought, were superb. He did take a dicey chance in the first half, playing out of the back. A bit of arrogance from him, I think, playing a ball to, was it Virgil van Dijk when Van Dijk wasn't looking? If that's Sadio Mane getting on the end of it, 1-0 Senegal, and it's a different story. But Netherlands, I think, had a bit too much quality in midfield at the end of the day, and were opportunistic. When they got their clean looks with minutes left, they took them. Senegal did not. If the Netherlands show up and play like this against Ecuador, write a new name at the top of this group. It'll be Ecuador. You can't show up and do what they did against Senegal. Credit to Senegal for frustrating the Netherlands. I go back to the start of this game, though. I think Cody Gakpo gets in. Good combination play. Dumfries didn't have one of his best games. I thought that Ismaila Sarr, told you about him, one to watch. I thought he had the better of Denzel Dumfries, but Dumfries did get in. 1-2 with Gakpo. Rather than finishing, Gakpo plays a square pass. Frankie de Jong gets in. 1v1 with Mendy. Tries to roll it around the goalkeeper. If you take the piss that way at the World Cup, Ecuador will punish you, because Ecuador doesn't mess around. We've seen it with what they did against Qatar. I think this is a bit of a scare for the Dutch. I expect them, if they get Memphis Depay on the field, I expect him to start the next game. He came in, looked like whatever injury worries or crisis may have been there isn't there. I expect him to start. Vincent Janssen, don't know what Louis van Gaal was smoking, but he should never smoke that thing again. Do not ever put Vincent Janssen on a pitch to start a World Cup football match. He got found out. Case done.